The night had a way of swallowing sound. Out there, on that empty stretch of highway, even the broken hum of my car engine sounded like it was being dragged into the darkness. I remember glancing at the clock on the dashboard. 12:07 a.m. perfect. Midnight, dead winter, and I was stranded in a car that had just decided it was finished with me. I tried the ignition again. Nothing. Just the hollow click of a machine that had given up. My breath fogged the windshield, more from my frustration than from the cold. I shoved the door open and stepped into the night, boots crunching against a thin sheet of ice. The air hit me like a slap. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, but it wasn't enough. The kind of cold that night wasn't just sharp. It crawled, slipped under your skin, made you shiver no matter how hard you clenched your fists. The road stretched out in both directions, empty. No houses, no gas station lights, no sign of anything resembling safety. Just me, my dead car, and the creeping thought that I'd be there until sunrise. That was when headlights appeared. At first, I thought I imagined them. A distant pair of beams cutting through the black. They grew larger, closer, brighter. I raised a hand, hesitant but desperate. My chest tightened, because out here, you didn't know if the person stopping would be help, or the kind of trouble you'd regret waving down. The truck slowed. Brakes hissed, tires crunched. And then he stepped out. He was tall, built like someone who carried weight for a living, not just at the gym but in his everyday work. His jacket carried a patch on the arm. Fire department. His presence was immediate. Not loud, not forceful, but steady. The kind of steadiness that made you want to breathe easier, even if you didn't trust easily. "You all right out here?" he asked, his voice low, even. I swallowed, suddenly aware of how small my voice might sound. "Car died. Just shut off." He nodded once, scanning me, then the car, then back at me. His gaze wasn't invasive, but it lingered long enough that I felt exposed under it. Not just cold, not just stranded, but seen. "Bad night for it," he said. "Cold enough to freeze your lungs." He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets and stepped closer. The beam of his truck headlights lit up his face. Strong jaw, dark stubble, tired eyes that looked like they'd been awake for longer than I had. I shifted uncomfortably. "I'll figure something out," I muttered, though I had no plan. He studied me for a second longer, then stuck out his hand. "Lucas." I blinked, caught off guard. I took it. His grip was firm, warm despite the freezing air. "Eli," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. We didn't let go right away. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe I didn't. The second stretched, just a little too long before we both released. "You can't stay out here," he said finally. "Tow trucks won't bother with this road until morning." He nodded toward his truck. "Come sit in the cab. Heaters on. I'll keep you warm until we figure it out." The words shouldn't have carried weight. But they did. Maybe it was the way his eyes didn't waver when he said it. Maybe it was the unspoken thing beneath the offer, the unnameable tension that made my chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. I hesitated. I should have said no, should have insisted I'd be fine. But instead, I found myself nodding, following him. The crunch of our boots on ice was the only sound. My heart beat too fast. His broad frame walked just ahead of me, and I caught myself noticing the way his shoulders filled the jacket, the way his stride was steady and sure. When I climbed into the truck, the warmth hit me like a rush. I exhaled shakily, hands rubbing together. Lucas slid in beside me, closing the door, and suddenly the cab felt smaller than it should. He leaned across me to adjust the vent, the heat blasting toward my frozen hand. His sleeve brushed mine. Just a touch. A nothing. But my body stiffened all the same. "Better?" he asked, settling back into his seat. "Yeah," I managed. My voice cracked slightly, betraying me. He gave the faintest smile. Not mocking. Just knowing. We sat there, the heater filling the silence. I stared at the frost melting on the windshield, but every part of me was aware of him sitting inches away. His warmth. His presence. His eyes that I could feel even when I wasn't looking at them. And that was when it hit me. This night wasn't just about a broken-down car. The way he looked at me, steady, unreadable, lingering, told me everything I didn't want to admit yet. Something was about to change. Lucas's truck was warmer than any blanket I could have imagined. The heater hummed, filling the small cab with thick, dry heat. My hands hovered in front of the vent, and my skin prickled as feeling returned. It should have been simple. I was cold, he was helping. That was all. But the problem was how close we were sitting. His arm brushed mine once, then again, and every time it happened, my chest tightened. He leaned over, pulled his jacket off, and draped it over my shoulders. The motion was casual, but the gesture felt anything but. His jacket was heavy, still holding the faint warmth of his body. Smoke and soap clung to it, the quiet scent of someone who worked with fire yet managed to carry a clean steadiness with him. "You'll warm up faster this way," he said. His voice was even, but there was something behind it, some current that made me too aware of the space between us, or maybe the lack of it. I tried to give it back. "I can't take your jacket. You'll freeze." He shook his head, unmoved. "Trust me. I've stood in worse weather than this. You need it more." There was no arguing with the calm certainty in his tone. Still, I caught myself staring at his profile as he adjusted the heater again, the way his jaw clenched slightly when he concentrated. His forearm brushed mine when he reached across the console, and the contact lingered just a fraction too long. I shifted in my seat, suddenly restless. "Did you always want to be a firefighter?" He gave me a sidelong glance, like he knew I was filling the silence just to stop myself from drowning in it. "Not really. I thought I'd end up like my dad, construction. But one day, I saw a crew pull a family out of a burning house. I figured if I was gonna spend my life working with my hands, I'd rather do it saving people." The words caught me off guard, not just what he said, but the way he said it. Honest. No bravado. Just truth. "That's not nothing," I said quietly. His eyes flicked to mine. "No. It's not." The cab grew quiet again, except now the silence felt charged. I pulled his jacket tighter around me, almost wishing it wasn't his, because every time I moved, the weight of it reminded me that it was. He leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, head tipping slightly toward me. His shoulder brushed mine again, this time deliberately. Or maybe I only imagined the intent. "You're still shaking," he murmured. "Not as bad," I lied. He studied me for a long second, then reached down and flipped the armrest between us up. The move was simple, practical, but suddenly there was no barrier. No excuse for space. He shifted closer until his thigh pressed against mine. I went rigid. Heat rushed up my neck, a warmth far stronger than the heater's. "You'll warm up quicker this way," he said. His tone was casual, but his eyes weren't. His eyes were fixed on me, searching, waiting to see if I'd pull back. I didn't. I couldn't. The silence in the cab thickened. Every brush of fabric, every shared breath, every second of his thigh pressed into mine felt too deliberate to ignore. I stared out the windshield, pretending I was calm, but my pulse thudded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I wanted to ask what he was doing. I wanted to demand if this was just kindness, just practicality, or something else entirely. But the words stayed locked in my throat. Instead, I said the only thing I could manage. "You don't even know me." His answer came slow, deliberate. "Maybe not. But I know enough." The way he said it made my stomach twist. Enough. Enough to sit this close. Enough to offer warmth with his body, not just his heater. Enough to blur the line between help and something else. I turned toward him, ready to say something, anything, but then I saw his face in the glow of the dashboard lights. The firmness in his jaw. The softness in his eyes. And I froze. Because whatever this was, whatever it wasn't supposed to be, it felt too close to be nothing. The heater hummed steadily, but the cab felt louder than it should. Every second stretched. Every shift of Lucas's weight beside me sent a pulse through the air. I sat rigid, trying not to think about how close his thigh was to mine, how his jacket weighed across my shoulders like a second skin. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, pressing, as though words would only fracture something fragile between us. I risked a glance at him. His head tilted back against the headrest, eyes half shut, face softened by the dim dashboard light. The stubble along his jaw caught shadows, making him look older than the 20-something I guessed he might be. Stronger, too. My gaze lingered too long. What? His voice startled me. His eyes were open now, fixed on me. Heat shot up my neck. Nothing, I said quickly. He smirked faintly, not mocking, just knowing. Then his eyes held mine a beat longer than necessary. Doesn't look like nothing. I swallowed hard and turned away, embarrassed by how transparent I must have been. My reflection stared back at me in the window, pale, tired, unsettled. The silence returned, but it wasn't empty. It pressed against me, filling the small cab with things neither of us dared say. After what felt like hours, Lucas broke it. His tone was softer now, like he was talking more to himself than to me. You ever feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't know what it is? The question cut through me. I looked at him, surprised by the rawness in his voice. Yeah, I admitted. All the time. His gaze locked with mine again, and this time I didn't look away. His eyes weren't guarded now. They were open, vulnerable, holding an honesty I hadn't expected from someone who carried himself like him. The air in the cab shifted. My chest tightened. There was a pull, subtle but undeniable, as if the silence itself was tugging us closer. I wanted to say more, to ask what he was waiting for, but the words stayed trapped in my throat. Instead, I sat there, frozen in that moment, his question echoing in my head, his eyes burning into me. The silence roared, louder than any confession could have been. Finally, I forced out a shaky laugh. This is not how I thought my night would go. His mouth curved, not quite a smile. Mine either. The way he said it made my heart stumble. We didn't move closer, but we didn't move away either. The tension between us hung heavy, undeniable. And in that silence, in the unspoken weight of it, I realized something had shifted. Whatever was happening here wasn't just in my head. Lucas felt it too. At some point, the hum of the heater lulled me into a shallow half-sleep. The night outside remained black and endless, the kind of stillness that made you feel suspended in time. When I stirred, it wasn't the cold that woke me, it was warmth. Lucas's arm was around my shoulders. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But no, his heavy jacket still draped over me, and beneath it, the solid weight of his arm held me steady against him. My head had tipped, almost unconsciously, resting against the firmness of his chest. I froze. Every instinct screamed to move, to create distance, to laugh it off. But I didn't. I stayed there, pulse hammering, listening to the steady thump of his heart beneath my ear. For a man like Lucas, touch didn't seem casual. He wasn't the type to do things thoughtlessly. Which meant this, whatever it was, had meaning. His hand flexed slightly on my shoulder, not pulling me closer, not pushing me away, just present. A quiet reassurance. I told myself it was practical, that it was just warmth, just comfort in the middle of a freezing night. But my body betrayed me. The longer I stayed, the harder it became to breathe evenly. Finally, I shifted, lifting my head. His arm stayed where it was, loose but steady. His eyes met mine, unreadable in the dim light. For a long moment, we didn't speak. The silence pressed in again, thick and charged. I opened my mouth, searching for words, but nothing came out. Instead, my hand moved before I could stop it, brushing lightly against his chest as I adjusted the jacket around me. The fabric was warm, but beneath it, I felt the steady rise and fall of his breath. His gaze didn't waver. And then, just as suddenly, he pulled back. His arm slipped away, retreating to his side, his body shifting toward the driver's seat. His eyes dropped, fixed on the steering wheel as if it were the most important thing in the world. "Sorry," he muttered. His voice was tight, strained. The loss of his touch was immediate, a cold rush across my skin. But the impression of it lingered, the weight of his arm, the warmth of his chest, the unspoken admission in his silence. I wanted to tell him not to apologize, that I hadn't wanted him to move, that the touch hadn't scared me, it had undone me. But the words stuck. So we sat in silence again, both of us pretending nothing had happened, even as every inch of me screamed that it had. And no matter how much he tried to take it back, the touch stayed. The silence after Lucas pulled away felt unbearable. His apology still hung in the air, sharp and unfinished. I sat rigid, clutching his jacket tighter around me as though it could replace the warmth I'd just lost. Minutes dragged. The heater hummed. Outside, the night was a wall of black. Finally, I broke. My voice was quieter than I meant it to be, but it cut through the thick stillness. "That didn't feel like nothing." Lucas's head snapped toward me. His jaw flexed, the tendons in his neck tightening. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, finally, he exhaled. "No. It didn't." My chest tightened. The admission was small, but it was everything. I stared at the frost melting on the windshield. My hands shook, not from the cold this time, but from the weight of saying what I hadn't dared say before. "So what do we do with that?" Lucas leaned back, rubbing the back of his neck. His hand lingered there, like he was holding up the weight of something heavy. His eyes avoided mine. "I don't know," he admitted. His voice was lower now, almost raw. "But pretending it's not there doesn't feel right either." The words hit me harder than they should have. They were simple, but they cracked something open in me, the wall I'd been holding all night. Slowly, cautiously, my hand shifted across the narrow space between us. My fingers brushed against his, featherlight. Just enough to make contact. I expected him to move, to retreat again. But he didn't. Instead, his hand stilled, then curled slightly, almost as if to catch mine. Not fully, not with certainty, but with hesitation, with fear, with want. I could feel the weight of his breath, hear it. The cab was so small, it felt like his silence was pressing against me, pushing for an answer I didn't know how to give. "Lucas!" I said his name softly, the sound trembling out of me. He turned finally, eyes meeting mine. And there it was, everything he'd tried to hide all night, laid bare in the dim glow of the dashboard. Vulnerability. Conflict. Longing. My throat tightened. What if this is real? The question hung between us, heavier than the night itself. His eyes searched mine, desperate, uncertain. He didn't answer right away, but the way his hand stayed touching mine, not pulling back, not denying it, told me more than words could. The silence between us had changed again. It wasn't avoidance now. It was something else. Something fragile, dangerous, but undeniably alive. Neither of us leaned in. Neither of us crossed that final line. But sitting there, hands barely touching, breathing the same thick air, I knew the truth. This wasn't an accident. And it wasn't nothing. Lucas's hand was still barely touching mine, but it felt like a live current sparking between us. Neither of us pulled back. Neither of us breathed too deeply, afraid it might shatter the fragile stillness. Finally, he broke it with a whisper. "Eli, I can't. I don't even know what this means." His voice carried something I'd never heard before, not strength, not control, but fear. Real fear. I swallowed hard. My pulse was hammering in my ears. "It means," I said slowly, carefully, "that maybe we stop pretending." The words left me trembling. My chest felt cracked open, exposed. Saying them out loud felt like stepping into air where I wasn't sure there was ground. Lucas shifted in his seat, his hand finally curling fully around mine. His grip wasn't steady, it was tentative, almost shaking, but it was there. Solid. A choice. He exhaled like he'd been holding it all night. "God, Eli, you don't know how long I've tried to ignore this." The confession hit me like a rush of cold air. My throat tightened. So I'm not the only one. He gave a small, helpless laugh, but it wasn't light. It was heavy with relief and regret. Not even close. I turned to face him fully, the heater blowing against my cheek, the dashboard casting him in faint orange light. His eyes looked haunted and alive all at once. "Why now?" I asked. "Why only tonight?" Lucas dragged a hand through his hair, gripping the back of his neck again like he wanted to hold himself together. "Because it's safer not to look at it. Safer to pretend I don't feel what I feel when you walk into a room. But sitting here with you," he cut himself off, shaking his head. "There's no pretending left." His words made the air between us throb. I wanted to reach for him completely, to close the gap that had been clawing at me for years. Instead, I leaned my head back against the seat, whispering into the close warmth of the cab. I thought I was going crazy, that I was the only one imagining this. Lucas let out a sound halfway between a sigh and a groan. He shifted closer, not much, just enough that the space between our shoulders disappeared. I could feel the solid weight of him against me. "You're not crazy," he murmured. "You never were." The world outside seemed to vanish. It was only us, the hum of the heater, the storm muffled against the truck windows. His head tilted, slowly, until his temple brushed mine. The gentlest contact, barely there. My breath caught, but I didn't move away. The warmth of him seeped into me, steady and grounding. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't reckless. It was something deeper, the kind of touch that said I'm here. I've always been here. I closed my eyes, letting the moment fill me. "So what now?" Lucas's voice was almost broken. "Now, we admit there's no going back." His words were terrifying and liberating all at once. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. Because the truth sat heavy in both of us. Whatever line we'd cross tonight, it couldn't be erased. For the first time, I let my hand tighten around his. Not tentative. Not uncertain. A grip that said I was choosing this too. And he didn't let go. The heater hummed in the background, but the warmth flooding my chest had nothing to do with it. Lucas's temple rested against mine, his hand locked in mine like a lifeline, and for a moment we were both silent, two men balanced on the edge of something that would alter us forever. I could hear his breathing, uneven and heavy. His thumb brushed once across my knuckles, almost absent-minded, but it lit a fire up my arm. "Eli," he whispered, his voice fraying at the edges. "If I do this, there's no undoing it." The words hit me like a challenge and a plea all at once. I turned to him slowly, close enough that our lips were a breath apart. "Then don't undo it." For a heartbeat, he froze. His eyes darted over my face like he was memorizing every feature, making sure I wouldn't disappear if he crossed this line. And then, finally, he moved. His lips pressed against mine with a force that wasn't gentle but wasn't rough either. It was desperate. The kind of kiss born from years of silence, from holding back something that never stopped burning. I gasped against him, my free hand clutching his jacket, dragging him closer as if my body had been waiting for this moment my entire life. The kiss was clumsy, raw, unpracticed, but it was real. Lucas trembled against me, his other hand rising to cradle the side of my face. The roughness of his palm against my cheek made me shiver, grounding me in the fact that this was happening. We broke apart only for air, both of us gasping, foreheads pressed together. "God," Lucas muttered, his voice wrecked. "What have we done?" I swallowed, my lips still tingling, my chest pounding so hard it hurt. "Something we can't take back," I whispered. "And I don't want to." His eyes searched mine, terrified and yearning all at once. "I shouldn't want this." "But Eli," his voice cracked. "I can't stop." The storm outside howled louder, as if echoing the chaos inside us. I didn't care. Nothing outside this truck mattered anymore. I leaned in again, slower this time, pressing my mouth to his in a kiss that was tender where the first had been desperate. His lips softened against mine, moving with a certainty that hadn't been there before. It was a promise, not just an explosion. When we pulled back, my breath was ragged, but my mind felt clearer than it ever had. We crossed the line tonight, I said, holding his gaze. And maybe it's messy, maybe it's dangerous, but Lucas, it's real. He shut his eyes tight, like he was fighting against every wall he'd ever built. When he opened them again, there were tears shining in the dim light. I've never been more terrified, he admitted. And I've never wanted anything more. The confession broke something in me. My hand squeezed his so tightly I knew it must hurt, but he didn't flinch. He squeezed back harder. In that cab, in the middle of nowhere, we weren't best friends anymore. We weren't two men pretending to be something we weren't. We were finally ourselves, and for the first time, neither of us wanted to run.